Hello everyone. Welcome back to Old Charles, your trusted channel, where we uncover the hidden history, value, and details behind some of the world's most fascinating coins. Today, we're diving deep into the story of a United States Liberty Quarter Dollar from 1965. If you have one of these quarters lying around, you might be surprised to know how important this year is in U.S. coinage history. So, let's explore its history, design, metal content, condition, and current market value. The 1965 quarter is part of the famous Washington Quarter series, first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Until 1964, quarters were made of 90% silver and 10% copper, giving them intrinsic silver value. But by the mid-1960s, rising silver prices made it too expensive for the U.S. Mint to continue producing silver coins. People began hoarding quarters, dimes, and half dollars because their silver content was worth more than their face value. In response, the Coinage Act of 1965 was passed. This law changed the composition of the quarter from silver to a copper-nickel-clad coin. This marked a historic turning point, the end of silver quarters and the beginning of modern clad coinage. The obverse front features the bust of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan. The word Liberty is at the top, In God We Trust is inscribed on the left, and the date 1965 appears at the bottom. The reverse back shows a majestic bald eagle perched on a bundle of arrows with olive branches underneath, symbolizing both strength and peace. Unlike many other years, the 1965 quarter has no mint mark because coins from Philadelphia and other mints were all struck without mint marks from 1965 to 1967 to discourage hoarding. The U.S. Mint produced over 1.8 billion quarters in 1965, making it one of the highest mintage years in U.S. coin history. Because of this enormous production, most 1965 quarters are common and still circulate today. However, a few rare error coins and special conditions can make them valuable to collectors. Now let's talk about what everyone wants to know. How much is a 1965 quarter worth? Today, most 1965 quarters found in pocket change are worth only 25 cents. Their face value. This is because they are not silver and were minted in very large numbers. A 1965 quarter in mint state condition, MS 60 to MS 65, can be worth between $1 and $15, depending on the grade. Higher grades, such as MS 66 or MS 67, are much scarcer and can fetch $100 to $500 or more at auctions. This is where things get exciting. Some error coins from 1965 are highly valuable. 1. 1965 silver quarter. By mistake, a small number of 1,965 quarters were struck on leftover 90% silver planchets from 1964. These coins are extremely rare and can be worth $5,000 to over $10,000, depending on condition. Point 2. Off-center strikes, double dies, or wrong planchet errors. These unique mistakes can make a 1965 quarter worth anywhere from $100 to several $1,000s. Now when it comes to coin collecting, condition is everything. Let's break down how condition affects value. Worn down, details barely visible, still just worth face value. Some details visible but heavily used, still face value. Light where most design features sharp, around $1 or only minor bag marks, can go from $10 up to several $100s. Professional grading services like PCGS or NGC certify coins, which can significantly increase their value if the coin is high quality. The 1965 Liberty Quarter Dollar is historically important as the first clad quarter, marking the end of silver coinage in circulation. Most are common and worth just face value, but in uncirculated condition or with rare errors, they can be very valuable. Always check your old quarters. You never know when you might have a rare silver 1965 error coin worth thousands. So that's the full story of the 1965 Liberty Quarter Dollar. From its historic role in U.S. coinage to its current collector's value, this coin is more than just pocket change. It's a piece of history. We are going deep into the fascinating world of coins. And our focus is the United States Liberty Quarter Dollar from 1965. At first glance, this coin might look like any other quarter in your pocket, But its story is packed with economic drama, government action, and a turning point in American coinage history. So sit back, because we're about to uncover the long and fascinating history behind the 1965 quarter. Up until 1964, U.S. quarters were made of 90% silver and 10% copper. This gave them real metal value, which often tracked the price of silver on the global market. But by the early 1960s, the world was experiencing a silver shortage. Industrial demand for silver was increasing, while global supplies were tightening. As silver prices rose, people realized that their silver coins were worth more melted down than spent in shops. This led to massive hoarding of silver dimes, quarters, and half dollars. Everyday Americans began pulling silver coins from circulation and storing them away as a hedge against inflation. The U.S. Mint suddenly faced a crisis. Coins were disappearing from circulation because people were saving them, not spending them. At the same time, the economy of the 1960s was booming. More Americans were shopping, driving, and using vending machines, all of which needed coins. Banks began reporting serious coin shortages across the nation. Businesses struggled to get enough change for transactions. To make matters worse, it was becoming too expensive for the government to keep producing coins out of silver. Since the metal cost was higher than the face value to solve this crisis, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Coinage Act of 1965 on July 23, 1965. This law marked the end of circulating silver quarters and dimes in the United States. From 1965 onward, quarters would no longer contain silver. Instead, they were made with a copper-nickel clad composition outer layer, 75% copper and 25% nickel. Core, pure copper. This new combination looked silvery, but was cheaper to produce and had no intrinsic precious metal value. That if anybody has any idea of hoarding our silver coins, let me say this. Treasury has a lot of silver on hand, and it will be used to keep the price of silver in line with its value in our coins. But despite his reassurance, Americans continued hoarding silver coins, making the 1965 quarter the first true modern coinage era piece. To stop collectors from hoarding coins by mint location, the U.S. Mint decided that from 1965 through 1967, no quarters would carry mint marks. This means every 1965 quarter looks the same, whether it was struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. The Mint also produced enormous numbers of these clad quarters, over 1.8 billion pieces in 1965, to flood circulation and ease the shortage. For many Americans, the 1965 quarter represented the end of an era. People who grew up with the sound of silver coins jingling in their pockets noticed the new clad coins had a very different look and sound. The silver coins had a distinctive ring when dropped, while the new clad coins gave off a duller clunk. Although the government solved the shortage, collectors and ordinary citizens felt a sense of loss, because silver coins carried both sentimental and real monetary value. The switch in 1965 changed U.S. coinage permanently. After this point, dimes and quarters were no longer silver. Half dollars were reduced from 90% silver to 40% silver, and by 1971, even those were clad copper-nickel. The 1965 quarter was essentially the first of a new era of modern American coinage today. It's remembered as the coin that marked the transition from precious metal money to base metal money in everyday circulation. When it comes to coins, one of the most important things to understand is that condition is everything. A coin's condition, or grade, can be the difference between a coin worth just face value 25 cents and one worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Normally, 1965 quarters were not struck as proofs, because proof coin production was suspended between 1965–1967 ***. However, the U.S. Mint produced special mint sets, SMS, instead. These coins are better struck than circulation strikes, with sharper details and sometimes a satin-like finish. An SMS 1965 quarter in top condition can bring $20 to $100. Depending on grade. Collectors love coins that look as close as possible to their original mint state. The higher the grade, the scarcer the coin becomes, because most 1965 quarters entered circulation and got worn down. Even though billions were minted, Very few survived in pristine condition. That's why uncirculated coins with grades of MS-66 or MS-67 are rare and command high prices. So as you can see, the condition of your 1965 Liberty quarter dollar can make a world of difference in value. From pocket change worth just 25 cents, to gem condition coins worth hundreds, to rare errors worth thousands, it all comes down to how well your coin has survived over the decades.